Hello everybody and welcome back to Reachin Reverie. My name is Alex and today I wanted to share with you guys something that I learned today in hopes that maybe you can learn from my mistakes and not do the same thing that I did. So we just moved out here onto our property and we have acres where we have mesquite trees growing wild all around us, and I got a little bit overzealous, and knowing that mesquite bean pods are edible, I harvested a lot. And after we harvested them, we decided to let them sit to dry out, thinking that we'd come back later and grind them down into an edible flour. Now, this video is going to start, and this introduction, I'm just letting you know that I started this video with the hopes of showing you guys how, for the first time, I am grinding down those mesquite pods into flour. I was gonna test it out for a little bit, get my feet wet, and once I felt comfortable, turn the camera on and show you guys how to make the flour yourselves if you also have mesquite that is local to you, nearby, or growing on your property as well. So let's get into today's video, and I hope you guys can learn from my mistakes and not make the same ones yourself. On today's video, we are making flour out of mesquite bean pods that were harvested right here directly on our property. We are going to be making our flour using a hand crank flour mill, and you put the beans into this hopper and you can set the adjustments if you want it to come out coarse, flour, or fine. And you just set that adjustment by turning this crank right here. Depending on what kind of grain or bean you're using, and then you'll run it through, and then you can always run it back through the hopper again and adjust this to a finer setting as you go. So running it through a couple times and getting finer as you go, it goes a little bit easier on this machine, and we want these machines to last a lifetime. Now, this type of hand crank flour mill, you can bolt directly to a table. I do have it set up on a board so that I can easily set up and disassemble this unit whenever I need to, since we are going to be cranking this flour mill on our freezer space. At this time, we are at the very early beginning stages of building our homestead from the ground up, and so we are living full-time in our RV, and we do have this shop here that we also are using as additional storage space and living quarters, and it also will have an additional bathroom here as well. So because we haven't actually built our home yet, we are limited on counter space, and it's actually easier for me to do some prep work for meals and do like slow cooker meals and things like that here in the shop versus in the RV because counter space is so limited. We are actually planning on building some shelving in here to store a lot of our kitchen appliances and kind of use this area as a prep area to either bring in to our kitchen or utilize our outdoor kitchen spaces. I've noticed since living here, I'm doing a lot more grilling. We also have a black stone flat top that Josh got for his birthday that we've been cooking on a lot as well, finding it's more comfortable to prepare and cook outside of the RV than in it. So that is where we have our full kitchen. But doing something like this, it's so nice to be able to move the flour mill around and use it where it's convenient. And then once we have our house built in the future, I think we'll find a table where we can permanently affix that flour mill to and make it a lot easier then. But I really do like that you can bolt it to something like a piece of plywood and then have it movable to fit wherever you want to do it. We still need to put our covers on our electrical switches, but one day at a time we're tackling our projects, and today's project is making flour. So this is a little embarrassing, and I'm honestly super bummed out, but the mesquite pods that I harvested towards the end of the summer. So it's probably been about a month and a half to 2 months ago that I harvested these mesquite pods. And I basically put them in a little baggie so that they could finish drying out and that they would be ready for me when I was going to go ahead and grind them. Well, I went to sort through the mesquite pods today, and they're completely infested with mesquite borer beetles. Essentially, these beetles, they have like a larval state inside the pod, and then they eat their way out. So a lot of times when you see mesquite pods, they'll have these little holes on them, and that's where the mature beetle has come out and has left the pod. Well, I'm going through these pods today, and the baggie that I had when I opened it, just an entire exodus of beetles flew out, like ready to go, living their best life. And I think that because I had so many mesquite pods there, they just had this little life cycle going, and it was just completely infested with these boring beetles. And so I popped open a couple of the pods, and there were worms in almost every segment of the beans that I was going through. And then the other thing that I looked at is apparently you're only supposed to harvest mesquite pods straight off the tree and never off the ground. And once they are mature, they're not supposed to get rained on so that they don't develop a fungus that's actually toxic to people. So I need to do a little bit more research. And this year's batch of mesquite is going into our burn pile, and we will be harvesting mesquite from the property next year, and I will do it right this time, and I can't wait to show you guys a video then. I'm really bummed. I was excited to have mesquite flour. It's a sweet gluten-free flour that you can make into things like pancakes and biscuits, and pretty much incorporate into your cooking as normal if you're going for a sweet flavor and if you are on a gluten-free diet like I am. So I was telling Josh, now I'm gonna have to go to the store and buy another grain so that I can grind down and actually use my little flour mill behind me. Some tips that I did learn today, if you are wanting to harvest mesquite pods, is only harvest pods directly from the tree. They should be kind of on their way to drying out, and when you go to grab them off the tree, they should just fall right off into your hand when they're ready. If they're still green, they're not quite ready yet. And oftentimes, and I found this to be true on our property, is you will have trees that have both mature and unmature pods on the tree at the same time. So not every pod on the tree is going to be ready to harvest at the same time. Kind of will come in waves. Don't harvest pods off the ground, as they can be infected with a fungus that is toxic to humans. And another thing that I was reading is once the pods are mature, you want to harvest them before the next rain, as the moisture on the mature pod will also grow a fungus that is not good for us to eat. Now, if you harvest your pods fresh, they are ready to go, pretty much dry on the tree, you can let them finish drying either in a dehydrator in your oven, or you can put them in a bag, have it tightly closed, and put it in your hot car for a few days to kill any of the mesquite boring beetles that are in there, as well as also finish that drying process for your beans. And you're going to want to grind them right away after that. Don't be like me and let them sit for 2 months thinking that you can get to it when the cooler weather hits after all of your summer projects are over, because I just wasted a mesquite harvest. So I think what I'm gonna do today is go inside and grab some coffee that we have, maybe grind some coffee for Josh because he's a big coffee drinker, and I'm thinking about going into town and grabbing another grain, like maybe some corn, and make some cornmeal just so that I can break in my new hand crank flour mill. What are you doing, dude? What are you doing? It's my photobombing cat. He is not allowed on countertops, but he has been allowed on the freezer. Dude, that's not sanitary. So we'll need to break that habit. Are you just rubbing all over that thing? That's gross. That is not sanitary. I'm gonna have to wash it all over again. Are you just starving for attention? Yes, you are. You're my little superstar. We went outside today because he loves to go sit in his little catio, and it was too windy. You lasted maybe 5 minutes before you were saying, let me back in. And now you want to go back out again, and you don't realize the wind is still out there. Yeah, it's still windy, dude. How about we don't do that? How about we don't do that? Can you come over here? Thanks, dude. So this wheel on this hand crank machine, I love it. You have multiple settings. You can either have this handle directly on the wheel, or you can install this extending arm crank thing to help extend it wider to make it a little bit easier to turn. Instead of having this short little turn, you can have a wider turn. You can loosen up these bolts and extend the arm down to make it an even longer crank if you got really long arms. And then of course, if you take off the extender and just screw this handle into the wheel itself, you would be able to crank it on a surface where, say you have a longer table and you don't want this to hit the table with your rotation, you can really customize it to fit your needs. If you completely take off the arm and this extender and you just have the wheel, you can actually motorize this, and it did come with instructions on how to motorize the flour mill, and it is super neat. So we may be doing that in the future. We really like this thing. Josh is pretty handy, so I was telling him about it, and he thinks he can make it doable. So when we get heavy on our homesteading chores, when we get the dairy goats, we're milking the goats, when we get our meat rabbits, and we have a full swing guarded at play here at the new homestead, I think having a motorized unit will be really good to help speed things up. Of course, you don't want to make it really fast. I was reading on there, they have some special guidelines for how many RPMs this thing can do and maintain it in safe form. But overall, like, we're pretty excited to use this thing. Can't wait. Really bummed today, but that's all right. So bringing you guys outside, we have our little outdoor sink right here, and I was gonna look through these beans to see which ones we wanted to sort out to grind. Of course, this entire batch ended up being coal, but this is all the beans we are not gonna turn into flour this year. Now, if you're watching this video, maybe you have mesquite that you just harvested, and maybe you are close to harvesting some mesquite, or you have hopes and dreams of using mesquite in your area. I hope you guys got to catch this video before you made the same mistakes I did, but leave it in the comments. Have you harvested mesquite pods? What do you think of the flour? And what are some other uses or recipes that you would use mesquite flour with? I can't wait to grind my own one day, but that day will not be today. If you like this video, give us a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. That way you can stay up to date with everything going on here at Reachin Reverie. This is a homesteading channel. You guys are getting to see glimpses into our lives as we learn and sometimes make mistakes along the way, but we are building our homestead from the ground up, one video at a time. Thank you and have a great day.